Hello, welcome to How to Embroider a Baby Onesie with Kay Hickman.
Those little baby one-piece outfits are cute just as they are, but they can be absolutely adorable with just a touch of embroidery. The embroidery personalizes the outfit and it makes a wonderful shower gift. Just add a special design or a name and you are set to go. But the actual process of embroidering on that little bitty tiny outfit can at first be intimidating. But once you see how it is done, I think you'll see how very easy it actually can be. You first need to find where you would like to position the design. So lay the onesie right side up on a table and decide. Traditionally, you can put it anywhere you want to, but traditionally it's in the center front. So we're going to kind of mark that. Now just an FYI here also, if this is your first time to do a onesie, the smaller the onesie, the little more challenging it is. So if you're doing one for the very first time, you might want to pick one maybe a 9 to 12-month-old, and it will be very easy to do. So I've decided I want mine in the center, so I need to mark the center front. So I've folded in half with wrong sides together. I'm going to line up the side seams. So be as precise as you can here because that's going to be determined what the design, where it's going to be. So place a pin at the top, a pin at the bottom, then open the onesie back up and then take a look at the design. If it doesn't look straight to you, then maybe something is off. You can get a ruler and measure from one side to the other to kind of double check yourself. Then you wanted to draw a line with a marking pen of some kind or a pencil to make that center vertical line. Now we need to decide where the design is going to be horizontally. So, you can do some math with this. You decide how far down from the top you want it, and then you're going to add that distance to half the size of the tallness of the design. So let's say you have a 4-inch tall design. Half of that is 2 inches. And if you want it to be an inch down from the top, then you're going to measure down 3 inches for that. I find it much easier to just print a paper template. Now most embroidery software programs can do this. If you don't have embroidery software, remember you can download BERNINA's free software, which is called ArtLink. So this will be, you can print these very, very easily. It prints out the vertical and horizontal line, and it actually prints out at the actual size. So this is why it makes it easier to visualize. The first choice design that I picked here, once I placed the template on the top of the onesie, looked overwhelmingly big. So I got to choose another one. But this is the one I chose, so I kind of roughly cut it out and then cut a slit around the center horizontal and vertical line and fold back those opposite two corners. This way you can mark that center horizontal line right there. Just get a pen and mark just a tiny little slit. And then you can open that back up, take away the paper, and you're going to extend the line. You want to make sure, use a ruler to make sure that these two lines are perpendicular to one another so your design will come out placed correctly. Now it's really important that you turn the onesie wrong side out. Now this is a trick, and that's the trick that's going to make it work so much better. You'll want to turn the onesie wrong side out, but that means we also need to mark that center horizontal and vertical line on the back side. So to make that easy, put a pin along the horizontal line, a pin along the vertical line, turn it wrong side out, and then you can fold it along that vertical line. And you can also double check that the side seams are correct here also. And then just mark a little mark right there where the horizontal pin is. Open it up now, and then you're going to extend those lines. So now you have the vertical and horizontal where you want the center of the design to be on the back side as well. Double check yourself, put a pin on each side and at the top of the bottom to see that both the lines are approximately in the right spot. Now we need to prepare the stabilizer. So there's some things to consider here. First of all, it's a knit, so we really need to use a cutaway stabilizer. Second of all, is for a baby, so we really need to use a very soft stabilizer. So we're going to use the poly mesh. You can hoop 1 or 2 layers of this. I chose to use 2 layers here. And the other thing is when it comes to hooping is we can't get that onesie in the hoop. So what we're going to do is hoop the stabilizer by itself, and then we're going to use the hoopless method, which means we're just going to stick the onesie over the top. So after the stabilizer is hooped, you need to mark the top and the bottom and each side with your hoop template over the top and then in the center. This is going to give you guidelines for positioning the onesie correctly. You will then remove the template and then connect the dots. So now you have good straight lines, and now we know exactly where we need to line things up. We do need to spray the top with a temporary adhesive spray, and be kind of generous here because you do want to adhere that onesie as much as possible. Then lay the hooped sprayed stabilizer down on a gridded surface. You can kind of use the lines here. You line the center line, the vertical lines with a line on the grid itself. If you were able to see through the stabilizer, you could use this method to actually mark the horizontal and vertical lines directly without using the template if you would like. Now we're going to fold that onesie. It's still wrong side out, so we're going to fold it along that vertical line and place that vertical line along the vertical line on that hoop stabilizer. And kind of press down with your hands from the top to the bottom to adhere that onesie to the stabilizer. And you also want to make sure that that horizontal line can be extended out at the horizontal line that you marked on the stabilizer. Now you unfold the onesie, and then you smooth that into place also. Use your hands to pat it down because we're trying to adhere the onesie to the stabilizer. Now, if you start stitching just like this, you're going to be stitching the onesie shut. The front and the bottom are going to be stitched together. But this is where we're going to go in through the bottom. Now, put your hand in there and then just smooth down again to make sure that much of the onesie is adhered to that stabilizer as possible. And now we're going to smooth things around so that we can embroider the design. Now it is tempting, but avoid doing this, to go through the neckline because that seems kind of the natural place to go. But if you place the template back inside there, you're going to see that that neckline is pretty small, and you're going to have to do a lot of maneuvering to keep the onesie excess fabric out of the way. A better place to do it is to open it up through the bottom instead. So just with your hands, kind of roll the edges of that onesie up along that bottom edge, and what you want to do is expose where you have marked the center horizontal and vertical lines. You want to have that where it is exposed and you can see it. It's always a good idea to place that template back on because now you can see exactly where the top of that's going to be, and you're going to see how much you're going to have to do maneuvering around that design as it stitches. Now, one thing that you should do is to use a ballpoint embroidery needle when you're doing a onesie. This is because it's a knit fabric, and if you use a sharp needle, you could actually cut the little fibers and cause little holes in the onesie. So change to a ballpoint embroidery needle, and then you want to align. We've attached this to the hoop. All of the excess stabilizer is still, excess onesie or the fabric is still smushed around from the sides and to the back, and that needle position is right on top of the marked center point on the fabric. If possible, it is a good idea right now to engage the design basting box. This will further hold the onesie to the stabilizer. If you have a 560, a 580, a 750, 780, 830, or 880, that is built into your machine. So you would just select it until you see the basting boxes directly around the design. The other machines, you can download a basting box for those, but it is the basting box for the perimeter of the hoop, which will not work in this case because there's not enough fabric to go around that edge. So we want to do the design basting box. If you don't have one of these machines, but you have BERNINA Designer Plus software, then you can create your own basting box just around the perimeter of the design itself. This is a knit, so I like to use a topping on the top. This makes it just a bit, it adds one more thing to have to consider, but I'm going to use it here to kind of keep the stitches up above, and it really makes the design look a lot nicer. So you're going to cut a square of the topping that's bigger than the size of the design you're going to stitch, and then use some painter's tape to attach it at the top and the bottom. If you're not using the basting box, then you need to really secure that as much as you can at this particular point with the painter's tape. Now the basting box is starting to stitch. Slow your machine way, way, way down, as slow as it can go, because what you'll want to do is to move this excess fabric from one side to the other as the design is stitching. An even better way is to engage your foot control and use your foot pedal just like you would with normal sewing. That's going to give you total control of stitching that basting box, and it's going to give you time to move the fabric out of the way. If you see that this fabric's going to get caught, then you just lift up your foot, the machine stops. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting with the start-stop button, and I am sometimes not coordinated enough to hit that quickly when I see that something may be going wrong. And then you're going to continue to stitch. Now we're at the top of that basting box, so you see the skewer, and you do need a wooden skewer, and kind of hold that out of the way as it stitches to the side. And then as it starts back down, you're going to hold the fabric out of the way in front of the stitching. So this fabric is kind of going to be moving around all the time. Remember, use that foot control if you can. And be sure you're ready to hit that stop-start button if you're using that to stitch rather than the foot control, so that you can stop that as soon as you see that you're in trouble. Look at your screen after the basting box is stitched. Look at your screen. It's going to tell you where you're going to start stitching next, and it's going to go up and start stitching the name Audrey. So I can just move this fabric out of the way right up front so that I can start stitching that name and the fabric won't be in the way. You'll want to watch the back of the foot itself. Don't just watch where the needle is, because you also want to keep that fabric away from the back, because you don't want that interfering with the way the foot is moving. So take a look at that. And then also check on the side, because I have done this before also, where I haven't watched where the fabric is, and sometimes it will get this lever that holds the foot on. It can get caught in the fabric and kind of loosen that. So you want to make sure your fabric is not interfering with that little latch. Also, you can see as the machine makes what is called a travel stitches, where it goes from one side over to the other. If you can just reach up and slow that machine down at that point, then it will also help give you time to move the fabric out of the way as it goes over to that side. Then you're just going to continue stitching. You'll need to stay with this project through the entire process. This is not one that you can start the machine and walk off. This is where you have to sit and watch every stitch, but it will be worth it because this is going to come out the way you want it the first time. When you're through stitching, we're going to remove that basting box first, so just clip every few stitches, and you'll be able to pull that thread off of the front to remove the basting stitches. And then you're going to trim the threads on the top, on the back side. You really only have to remove what's going to show through the front. So where I'm clipping now, I really wouldn't have to clip that if I didn't want to. But if you can see where my cursor is right now, there is a brown thread that's kind of hanging out to the side. If I were embroidering on a white onesie, I would want to make sure that thread is clipped off, because that thread can show from the top side. You might be able to see that thread. Then clip the thread on the front. I like to trim those jump stitches while it's still hooped, but the preference is yours. And then you will remove the stabilizer. This is the wrong way to remove stabilizer. As you are looking at the screen here, you can only see the stabilizer. You cannot see where that brown fabric is. So you run a real high risk of cutting into your fabric on the right side. The better way to do it is to place this on the flat surface with the stabilizer side down, Then you gather up the fabric in your left hand while you cut around the outside edge to trim away the excess stabilizer. You're going to just cut roughly around the edges. If you're going to leave it in the state that you see here, I would probably try to smooth out those edges so it didn't have these sharp little tips. But I'm going to use a product called Gentle Touch. And Gentle Touch is a very, very, very sheer covering for the design on the back side. It's going to cover up all of the bobbin stitches, and that will keep those itchy edges away from the baby's skin, and it's going to cover up all of those stitches, and it'll make the design actually more secure where the threads won't pop out. This is not a stabilizer. You need to remember this is just for covering up those bobbin stitches. Then you're going to remove the front. You're going to remove all of the stabilizer. And then you will be ready to clip those threads. I clip the threads between the letters. I can do that on the front, but I do not do that on the back side. I'll leave those in. That'll help to keep the thread from accidentally popping also. So then your little outfit is now ready for your favorite little one. So use these tips and tricks for embroidering a little onesie, and happy embroidering.